1 in 5 South Norfolk residents cannot afford basic needs. Here to talk about Neighborhood, a program that is helping change that statistic, is CEO Josh Jones and Chief Operating Officer Steve Green. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having us.
What is the Neighborhood, and how did it get started?
Yeah, so Neighborhood is a career and community development organization to help our South Norfolk neighbors find living wage careers.
And how did it get started? What made you guys, or how did you end up in South Norfolk, and why South Norfolk?
Yeah, my wife and I moved there about 13 years ago, and we had heard rumors that South Norfolk was a place that was going to be revitalized, and we moved in, and what we found was just an incredible place full of some really great neighbors. And so many of those neighbors just really needed some assistance, and they needed help. And so my wife and I just began to kind of live a life of loving those neighbors and trying to help where we could. But after a while, it kind of just became pretty clear that more was needed. Kind of a bigger, more structured program was needed than just kind of the smaller help that we had been trying. And that's kind of where Neighborhood, the idea of Neighborhood, was really born.
Right, because South Norfolk really is a neighborhood. I mean, if you're from South Norfolk, and I mentioned that I am, and I have family that is still there, it really is quite a tight-knit community. So how did you get involved with Neighborhood?
Yeah, my family and I moved in there a few years back as well to be part of the organization. And like you said, it's definitely distinct in Chesapeake as its own flair and own community there in South Norfolk. And so what we were doing, building on top of a lot of the ground level work that Josh and his family and some other families were doing in the area, was to actually import a nationally successful program working to fight and abolish economic and relational poverty, and say, what would that look like to bring to our local community into South Norfolk?
Okay, who does the program target?
So we are working and looking for individuals living at or below the poverty line between the ages of 18 and 55 who already have either their high school diploma or GED and have some measure of stable housing, whether that's rental or subsidy or temporary housing or their own, some measure of stability there.
How does the program help these people?
Yeah, so we start by a fairly thorough recruitment process to find individuals who have the grit and determination to make it through this 6-month to a year-long program. And we're going to be starting our first class or cohort in the fall in September. And then after those individuals are accepted and they're termed leaders, those leaders start with 8 weeks of personal development. And that personal development process is an actual investment in them as human beings first before we move on to the career portion. And so we spend a lot of time working through past traumas and trials, along with understanding themselves and cooperating and working collaboratively in a workplace environment, and just doing a lot of in-depth soft skill development. And then we move on to what we call skill development, where we work with local education partners like TCC or apprenticeship programs or online partners to get them a middle skill transferable certificate in a growing career. So that could be carpentry, welding, electrician, HVAC, medical assistant, medical billing and coding, any of those type of careers. And then we open opportunities for them with local area employers who are in need of those professionals to come in at entry level and work up and make a career out of it, so that at the end of it, those leaders can come through the program and gain that living wage employment. And around all of that, we ask for ally volunteers from the community to walk alongside those neighbors in support and celebration of that process, so that there is a family, a community of support around them that crosses lines of race and class.
So what is an ally in this program?
Yeah, an ally, we say they're not a mentor and they're not a coach. They really are genuinely just a friend, a neighbor, who's going to help those leaders confront the barriers in front of them as they move towards full employment. So along with childcare and transportation and all of the physical material barriers that exist, there's also a lot of internal and psychological barriers that having support structure and social capital becomes really key for our leaders to be able to move through successfully. And allies play a pivotal role in building that family and community.
Yeah, it does sound like that's such an important role, because just life in general, you have different things that in different circumstances everybody has. So this sounds like a really great program, and it's a pretty long commitment.
It is.
Yeah, so the whole program itself could take up to a year, but depending upon the trade that they go into, some of those apprenticeships or schooling could take less, but we say it's roughly a year-long program.
Well, you know, and it's not easy to get into an apprenticeship. There's a, you know, a lot of challenges. So to have somebody there who's helping you along the way to give you direction and support is key, definitely. Now, what is the long-term effects of the program on South Norfolk and the city as a whole?
Yeah, for starters, there was a study done recently by some researchers at Brown University that found that in the zip codes covering South Norfolk, children whose parents make $30,000 or less, when they hit their prime earning years at mid-30s, will make actually expected income of around $20,000, so $10,000 less. So there's very few zip codes in all of Hampton Roads, let alone Chesapeake, where there's a downward trend like that. So by investing in the parents now and investing in opportunities, we can actually begin to confront that head on and start to halt and possibly reverse it. The other thing is that when we give those families, and they really themselves gives themselves through the work that they do, that level of financial stability and independence, now they have more margin in their days and weeks that's not taken up with second and third jobs, to actually be able to invest in the public schools and the civic leagues and participation in all the community events there in South Norfolk, so that they can continue to make it this thriving, unique neighborhood here in Chesapeake. And then finally, you know, we talk to employers all the time who tell us, you know, I could hire 20 welders tomorrow, I could hire 20 medical assistants tomorrow. And that workforce is ready and waiting. There's talented, wonderful people in South Norfolk that need that opportunity. So we're excited to be able to pair up, you know, that mismatch.
And those skills are needed. You know, there's, you know, you hear that nowadays. You know, college education is great, but the skilled workers are really needed. So it sounds like you're helping to break that cycle, which is wonderful. So how does someone become a partner? If you're looking for partners or allies, how does somebody find out about that?
Yeah, so our contact information is on our website. This is neighborhood.com. And right now, as we're in the building phase, getting in contact with us directly is the best way, because we are going to be looking for allies starting in the fall, those volunteers, and for employers that are willing to say, hey, I need those entry-level employees, and I'm willing to give them the living wage and the career that they're meant for.
Great.
We
Such a
really-
wonderful program.
Yeah, we really believe that Hampton Roads' next great workforce is going to come from South Norfolk. And we're happy to be a part of it, and we're so happy to live there.
That's the case. Sounds great. Thanks so much for coming on to talk about neighborhood.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Thank
It was
you.
great.
We have to take a quick break, but up next, we'll learn about a gardening program that not only helps inmates, but also our community. Stay with us.